Hi friends, welcome to CodeJana and let's continue making our Flask app. Alright, so in this video, I'm going to tell you how to create a database. We are going to use Flask SQLAlchemy to create our database, and for this video, we are going to focus on SQLite. Now, if this was a production environment, I would highly suggest you to go with Postgres SQL. In my next video, I'm going to cover Postgres SQL with Flask, so make sure to watch it as well. Alright, so let's get to it. Alright, so first of all, let's verify that our app is currently working or not. So let's activate our environment first. So env scripts and then activate. So our environment is active. Now python run.py. Alright, so now open the page and there we go. So our website is running. So this is the sign up page. And now let's create Krishna at codejana.com. Password 123456. So currently the message is being displayed perfectly, no problems there. But how about we try to log in from that user? So Krishna at codejana.com, password 123456, and login. So login is working as well. Now we have currently hard coded the registration and login. As you can see, if the form email data, which means that the email entered by the user matches Krishna at codejana.com and the password matches 123456, then this message will be displayed. However, currently no data is being saved in our database because we currently don't have it. So for example, if I had created another user, for example joe at gmail.com, password, let's say password, confirm password of password. So let's sign up. Alright, so I did a mistake there. Let's sign up. Okay, so the message is currently fine. Account successfully created, but is it though? So let's say joe at gmail.com. The password was password. Let's log in. And see, login unsuccessful because currently there is no database to check all of this information. So let's begin creating our database. So first of all, I'm going to close this server, Control C to close it. And then we are going to install the Flask SQLAlchemy library. So it is just as simple, pip install flask -SQLAlchemy. Alright, so I already have it installed, but in your case, it is going to go online and then install it. Alright, so it's done. Let's just clear our screen. Alright, so creating a database takes 3 steps. First of all, we are going to initialize the database from init.py. After that, we are going to create a models.py file, and then we are going to edit routes.py to actually save the information in our database. So let's begin initializing our database. Alright, from the top, from Flask _SQLAlchemy, import SQLAlchemy. So we are going to import this class. After that, we need to configure this app. So app.config, and in here we are going to assign a database URI, which is the resource identifier for this file that we are going to save. So that's SQLAlchemy _database _URI. Alright, and that equals to SQLite and then colon and then // and now if you want to create a separate folder for keeping your database files separate, then you can create them right now. So click on codejana _flask just to be safe, and then click on this new folder and type database. Alright, so now we have created the database folder and we can name it right here. So database and then / and the name of the database file that we are going to create. So for this one, I'm just going to type cjflask.db. Alright, so now we have configured the app as well. And finally, we are going to initialize the SQLAlchemy class with this variable. So db is equal to SQLAlchemy, and then we are going to pass app as the argument. So this will initialize the database files inside of SQLAlchemy. Alright, so that's all we need to do. Now after this, as I said, that we are going to create a models.py file so that we can create models of each field that we are going to use. So let's create them. Now click on codejana_flask again just to be safe. Click on new file and then models.py. Now inside of it, first of all, we are going to import that DB that we have initialized here. So how do we do that? Click on models and then from codejana_flask, which is again this folder right here, inside of it, import DB. That's it. See, it is going to look for init file by default, and in that init file then it is going to look for this DB variable, and if it is there then it is going to import it. Alright, so now let's create our class for user, because for this video we are just going to focus on the user information. Alright, so let's begin creating it. So that's class and then user, and this user is going to inherit from db.model. So db.model, and this is how we are going to be creating a table user, and inside of that we are going to have all of these columns. All right, so let's begin creating it. First of all, we are going to need an ID, and it is a unique ID, the primary key by which each and every row is configured. After that, we are going to have a username entered by the user, then an email. After that, now if you want the user to be able to, add the profile picture later at some point, you can assign a column right here, and later you can configure the account page to accept or upload a profile picture. So that's image_file. And don't worry, we are going to be creating account page as well in later video. After that, we are going to need a password. And finally, this is for the sake of taking a note of when a user has created their account. So that's why we are going to use a date created variable. Now from the top, ID is equal to db.column. So all of these variables are going to instantiate each class inside our database models. All right. So in db.column, this ID is supposed to be integer. So there we go. And as I told you that this is the primary key, a unique key that is assigned. So that's true. Now the username is going to be a string. So first of all, it's going to inherit from column, and then it is going to be a string. Now, according to your choice, you can either create a 20 characters limit or 30 characters limit, but for me 20 characters is good enough. Now we want the usernames to be unique. We don't want duplicate usernames. So let's do the unique is equal to true. And then we do not want empty fields here. So nullable will be false. Now email. So kind of in similar fashion, we can just copy and paste email here as well. Now only change that we are going to make is this string length, because emails tend to become larger. So we are going to have 120 characters in email. Now emails are also supposed to be unique, so that's true as well. And we do not want empty email field, so nullable is false. All right, so image file. It is going to inherit from the same DB column, and then again it's going to be a string. Now this is not how you display the image. This is just for storing the name of the image, so that later we are going to append the path of the image with the name of the image, and by combining both of those things we are going to be displaying the image. It will be more clear when we are creating our account page. So just bear with me here and create this field. So the name we are going to be using is going to be around 20 characters long, and let's say we don't want an empty field here, so nullable will be false. And currently we are going to have a default image name. So that's default.jpg, and that's going to be in string form. There we go. So we don't have to provide an image file name right on the spot, because as you can see, I'm just going to start my server. So that's python run.py. Let's click on it. And as you can see, we do not have a field for accepting an image. That's why we are going to provide a default name for this image, so that later at some point we can add the image. All right, but we need to create this column as we are creating this user model. Now password, in similar fashion, the password is going to inherit from db.column and then db.string. Now currently for this video, I'm going to have text-based password. We are not going to encrypt it in this video because that will complicate things a little. We are just going to have a text-based password. But in my next video, I'm going to show you how to encrypt password before saving it in the database. All right. So for this one, we are just going to have a string of 20 characters. Now the passwords can be duplicates, so we don't need the unique to be true, but we do need this nullable is equal to false, because we do not want empty password field. All right, now finally date created field. Now this is not going to be a string. This is going to be a date time function from DB model. Now we want to add the date dynamically at the time of sign up. All right, so we are going to use the date time function. So the default value will be date time and then UTC now. Now as you might have already seen that UTC now is a function that you need to call in order to have the current date appear. But if we do this, then at the time of creation of this table, it is going to be fixed at 5 October 2020. But we don't want that. We want this to be dynamically added when the user creates their account. So we won't call this function, we just need to reference to that function. I hope that's clear. Now datetime function is not a property of SQLAlchemy. So we need to import it from datetime. So from datetime, import datetime. And that's it. So our user model is complete. Now currently if we query for this user, we are not going to have any result because we are not displaying any result. For that we are going to use repr dunder function. So let's create that. It will take self as the argument, and self refers to this user class. All right. After that, what we want to return. So we want to return this message. So I'm going to make it a formatted string. Now what we are going to return? Now we are going to return the username, email and date created. We don't need to see any other information when we call that user model. All right. So let's use these braces and then self.username. In similar fashion, we are going to have self.email, and then finally we are going to have self.date underscore created. And that's it. Our repr function is finished. So now when we call this particular user model, we are going to have username, email and date created of that user. Now you will understand this in this next step because we are very close to creating our database. So let's do that right now. I'm going to close this server and let's start our Python terminal. All right. So now from codejana underscore flask import db, which is again saying that go inside this codejana flask, look for db variable which is inside our init file. It happens automatically. You don't need to do anything else. So don't worry about this warning. All right. So now from codejana underscore flask dot models import user. See right here, this is what we have set. From codejana underscore flask import db. It will load up the database. All right. After that, we are going to tell it that go inside this models module and bring out the user class or user model that we have created. So let's press enter. All right. So I have made a blunder there. True is not supposed to be in a small form. I'm truly sorry here. And there we go. So now let's do that again. And there we go. So currently we don't see anything. And why is that? Because still our database tables are not created. So after importing the DB, we need to create our tables. For that, we have a command db.create underscore all. All right. So as you can see in our database folder, we have cjflask.db. And now let's import our user model. So from codejana flask models import user. And now you must learn all of these queries that I'm going to show you further, because you're going to be using these queries to query all the information inside a database. So first of all, the most important one is the query all. And it is showing us an empty list because we do not have any information saved in our database. So how about we do that now? For that, we need to change our routes.py file. And as always, we are going to import our database from codejana_flask. So just like we have imported this app variable, we are going to import db as well. Now after importing the database, we are going to import the user class from this models.py. So let's do that. From codejana_flask.models, import that user class that we have created. All right. So now after validating our form, we are going to add a user. So that becomes user is equal to user, and this refers to the user class. All right. So in parentheses, it is going to accept some arguments, and what those arguments are going to be, all of these fields that we have created here. Now we do not need to send an ID or all of these values that we have set a default of. So we only need to enter the username and then the email and then the password. Only this information is going to be needed. So let's do that. So username is equal to form.username.data. Since we have already instantiated our form here, it is going to accept form.username, so the username field, and then the data of it, which is the value of that field. All right, so for email, we are going to accept form.email.data, and in similar fashion, it is going to accept the password. So form.password.data. Now, so our user has been created. However, it will not be saved inside the database. So how about we do that? Now we are going to add that user in our database. For that, we need to do db.session.add, and now in arguments we are going to pass this user variable that has instantiated this user class with all of this information. After that, we are going to commit these changes. So db.session.commit, and no argument is going to be required there. So how about we just run our app and see if the information is currently being added to the database or not. So I'm going to exit out of this Python terminal, and then we are going to start our server. There we go. So let's open it. Click on sign up. And now we are going to add a different user. All right. CJ user. All right. Then cjuser@gmail.com. The password will be, for simplicity, let's say 987654. All right. 987654. Sign up. So no errors there. Account created successfully for CJ user. However, we cannot log in from that user because our login function still has these values. Don't worry, we are going to do that just next. For now, let's query our database for the latest values. So let's close this server, access the Python terminal, and this time, and the same thing, from codejana_flask, import db. It is very important to import the database first. After that, from codejana_flask.models, so models module, import the user class. There we go. Now we're going to query our database. So user.query.all, and yes, we have that user in our list. Now let's say we want to find out rest of the values. For example, we had the ID, the password, the image file. Where are they? Well, this information was displayed using our REPR function. We can add more information in here and it will be displayed when we query our database. But currently we don't need to do that. If we want to find out the password or ID of this user, we first need to filter our results. So let's say user is equal to user.query.first. All right. And now ask for user. There we go. So we have the same information. All right, but this time we can do user.id, and yes, we have the ID of 1 there. After that, we can do user.password, and yep, in plain text we have 987654, and that's why it is not safe to just use your password in text format. Always remember to encrypt your password before saving it in the database, because if somehow someone accesses your database file, they will have all of this information and they can use it however they want. So in my next video, I'm going to tell you how to encrypt it. All right, so now we have successfully added the information from our form Now I cannot access the form, so that's why I have opened it in this tab, because our server is currently closed, and if I refresh it, the page is going to crash. So from this form, we have successfully added the information in our database, as you can see right here. So now we are going to change our login function so that we can log in via that information. All right. So currently we are just verifying form.email.data, which is obviously the information that is input by the user at the time of login. So this one. So we are verifying the email entered in this field with a default or a direct krishna@codejana.com. We are not querying for that user. After that, we are comparing the password filled inside this password field with a direct or default 123456. So we are not going to do that. We are going to compare the password and email entered by the user with the information saved inside our database. All right, so let's do that. After validating on submit, we are going to query for that email. So user is equal to user, access that class, and then query dot filter by. So filter by is a method inside query. Now we are going to filter by email. All right, so filter by which email? The email entered by the user. So that's form.email.data. All right, and then pick out the first result. So dot first. Now this query is going to return the first email. Now before I do this, I want to show you if I had not added this dot first, what would happen? So again, our Python terminal is on, and we have already imported the database and then imported the user class right here. So how about we run this query in Python terminal first? So user is equal to user class query dot filter by, and then email. So email is equal to now form.email.data, right? Now since this Python terminal is not going to read our form, I'm going to just display the email that we have entered there. So we did enter cjuser@gmail.com. All right, so now if we do not add the dot first parenthesis there, this is what we are going to have. So let's print out the user variable, and we have received an object. Let's see if we can access other values from it. So user.id, and see, we have received an error because that object does not have an attribute named id. And same is true with user.password, user.email. So that's why we need that dot first to access the first value from this object. I hope I'm not confusing you. If I am, then please access the comment section and then drop your comment there. All right, so again, I'm going to access this function, and this time I'm going to add the first method here. So let's enter it, and now let's print out that user and see all the information without the list format. And now if you do user.id, you get the id, user.email, you get the email. So now you can actually verify against that information. All right, so now let's get back to our routes.py file. We have displayed if form.email.data equals krishna@codejana.com. So we'll start from the beginning. I'm going to delete this conditional. And now what we want to do, so now we are going to compare the email entered by the user with the email that we have accessed from this user. All right, so let's do that. Form.email.data is equals to user, and don't leave it there. As you have seen in this Python terminal, we need to use user.email to access that value. And since we are here, I'm going to access the password value as well, so that you understand it better. All right, so we need to use user.email, and then since both of these values need to be compared simultaneously, we are going to use end statement there. So now form.password.data is going to be compared with user.password, and see if both of those conditions match, then we are going to see a login successful. So how about we check it out? We're going to close this Python terminal. Let's exit out of it, and now python run.py. Great, proceed to this Firefox, and now in register, let's refresh this page. So now let's create a new user. All right, for this one, let's say Tim Burton. All right, so email will be timburton@gmail.com. Password will be password for simplicity. All right, let's click on sign up. And so we have successfully created the account. Let's try to log in from that user. So that's timburton@gmail.com. Password was password. Enter it. And there we go. We have successfully been redirected to account page, and the message displays as well, login successful for timburton@gmail.com. Alright, so we have successfully added Flask SQLAlchemy as our database, and if this was a production environment, then we would have used Postgres SQL, which is the topic of the next video. So make sure to watch it, because again, if you are creating a website, you want to use either MySQL or Postgres SQL. So see you in the next one, and make sure to subscribe to CodeJana. Take care. Bye bye.